Hi there.
How are you, dear?
I'm good.
Good.
You really?
Yeah, you go there with us.
That little Dalmatian pup, if you need one. Fostering little Dalmatian pup right now.
Hey, did anybody go after that dog that you just posted on there?
Not yet.
No. Is he at your house?
Yeah, I've been for 2 weeks.
Google's going through the blinds, through the fence like this, checking out your dog.
Yeah.
He's like,
Well, you have this little Dalmatian.
Did you?
It's a foster. Just foster.
He's a cute little dog.
Oh, I already had a picture.
Cute personality. Did you put him on the neighbor's
Yeah.
email?
No, not yet.
Oh, I thought
I
that's
put him
what
on
they were talking
Facebook.
about.
No, I put him on Facebook first.
I am probably going to be.
Good, I need some chocolate. Of course you may. We use that.
I mean, you know,
he's got another thing on the sleeve though. It's like they come to you.
well, maybe he hadn't told me about that yet. We were talking about it 50.
No, I think you're like this.
Okay.
Very.
Because I said, you know, can you believe 50% increase? That's just crazy.
Are they?
Oh my God,
Real
it's
hard.
killing me.
But you know, look, it might be. I did say I did. You know, they're older about this a lot when the dogs do their little, allergies, colds, cuts, stitches, all that.
Super sweet.
The major is different.
Super, super sweet.
Oh, okay.
And guess what?
It's already house trained. Kennel trained, police trained.
Oh, I really like that.
Where'd you get him?
I do tell about myself, but so yeah, I really like that.
Talking about Sunday.
Colorado.
Oh, really?
Very, very sweet little guy.
Where's Murphy?
I don't know. Okay, let me go remind him.
Wake him up. You what?
Let me go remind him.
Still decorating.
He's trying to take the scotch tape off so you don't see it.
Yeah, I got some wicker that you can still sit in, but you won't go through.
I'll be sure to point that out.
I'm telling you, I almost got trouble last time.
Got scolded.
No.
Give you the thing.
Or is it in here?
Okay. So
Alrighty.
here, the budget summary. I just want to see what day it was in, because I received another one.
Right.
Going back and touching over a few things first, I think.
So is this revised based on our discussion? Based on discussion and based on the health insurance that's going to go up as well? Is it going up more than?
50%.
And we budgeted 12%?
We budgeted 15, so she adjusted it to show the 50% in those new figures there. Yeah.
So when I initially created the budget, it was as of 6/22, and we had 576,763 for the grand totals. We divide that by 100, multiply it by the current tax rate, and that's what we were expected to bring in. But I went down a little, and now it's
We
gone
are
down
currently
520.
streaming.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, there's the
Let's look at the right
agenda.
page first. Look at the grand
Oh, you want a gavel?
Those are the ones that
Use your water
are
bottle.
not under review. So for the grand totals, if we look at the grand totals, they've gone down a little bit. 575 because we've had people who have gone in and disputed. Yes. So it's gone down a little.
Hello everyone, it's 6:02. I wanted to call our budget meeting to order. State that all council members are here. Session on proposed budget. Do you have any citizens wishing to comment?
I'm a citizen, Kevin.
Yeah, sure. And, continue where we were at the last Monday's meeting. I think we are getting ready to go through the rest of the public works part of the budget. Does that sound correct?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, good.
One more for you.
I didn't know if your laptop was going to come up, so that's good.
So happy.
Yes. Success. Just make sure we're straight here.
Who got the one that doesn't have a back page on it? Let's approve that for a second.
This all deals with the compensation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were we completed with the equipment and the budget line items for the different accounts? I think we got through street repairs and welding equipment. Is that correct?
In the public works?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, super. All right.
Okay.
We have music?
Maybe sing?
I'm not sure.
You don't.
Okay.
No,
Oh,
just
okay.
turning my phone off.
Oh, I'm actually doing the calculation. What does 15% come to?
$9,750.
Okay. Well,
So,
the points that I made last week, I still think the same thing. I mean, I don't think it's very difficult to compare other municipalities with ours because they have different budgets that they're working with. And based on what we pay our department heads, the other three, I do not think it's equitable. Like I said, I think we should have started you like at between 50 and 55, and I do not think it's equitable to give you that kind of increase.
well, the reason I put that out is, one of the ways you know exactly what my department takes care of what we do. I wasn't brought in as Jimmy's replacement.
No, I
Jimmy
realize
was-
that.
I wanted Jimmy to stay with me. I tried to get him to. And, I give him kudos and wish him the best wherever he went. But, the work that I do and the hours I put in and my skill set, in my opinion, justifies what I'm asking for.
Okay, well, I'm looking at a 3% like everybody else is getting.
That's right there.
That's 3%
That's 3%
of 65,000.
of,
He makes 65,000 right now.
I'm sorry, I thought it was this.
No.
My mistake. Yeah. Oh, I see, yeah.
I don't know how difficult it would be to calculate what a commensurate salary would have been, and then to have had added overtime to it that would be commensurate to the time you've actually spent. I think that this request kind of works against you that way because it doesn't take into account the money earned from spending more time than a typical 40-hour work week. And I don't know if your like-type rivals are salary positioned or hourly. I don't know details of their comp. But I think, and I don't know how that could or would play into this. I think we're benefiting right now from a higher salary without overtime because of the number of hours you're putting in. Would you think that's true?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I would. My understanding is most public works directors are our salaried position. Your larger departments have multiple assistants, so to spread the workload out.
As such, once you've reached 40 hours and you're working beyond that for salary, I know at the TV stations I worked at, those folks would get comp time, or they would accrue time off so that the company wouldn't be spending more in comp. And have any of you been in a situation where that's been used so that salaried people wouldn't be penalized for needing to stay later or longer at certain times of the year?
I've actually been in a situation where we're salaried, we work trade shows, we work weekends,
Yeah.
and they would give you, for every day that you worked on a weekend, you earned a half a day off.
Okay.
And as it occurred, throughout the trade, and we do 13 trade shows a year, and you start adding those up, well, along around Christmas time, in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, a lot of the salespeople were out of the building.
Yeah.
And they were getting the word paid days off, is what it was.
Okay.
And that's just one way that we worked it. So, and my salespeople really liked it.
Yeah.
So the way I'm looking at this is, you started out at a nice big bay, okay, for us. Never was, was a apartment before. I mean, a head of
Yes,
an
sir.
apartment.
That is correct.
And you've only done it for 1 year.
Yes, sir.
And so, my thing is, you got 1 year in your belt. Let's try to get some more before we go to this. Okay? Boom. I want, 78 grand. So I kind of like to see a little more time in the job. I know you're doing a great job, but this really is a big leap for me to swallow.
No, and I don't argue that. It truly is a big one.
Right.
But I'm just trying to get myself up to what the medium is for the position and the workload that I carry and what I get done. It's a one-time deal. After this, it's whatever the job, whatever y'all feel is worthy.
Personally, I think I don't have a problem with it. I look at it from a different perspective as a business owner as well, and I look at it like, okay, if he's doing this amount of extra work, weekends, extra hours, would I have to? If he wasn't doing that, would I have to hire somebody to fill those voids?
Mm-hmm.
And if I have to hire somebody, I'm gonna have to pay them enough money, to make it worth their while as an extra employee.
But again, the guys who are working in that department now should be able to.
Yeah, but this is a whole different ballgame now. Before, we didn't have the Voight Center like we have. We didn't have the pool like we have. We didn't have all the stuff that's going on that we have now. It's a whole different deal than it was 2 or 3 years ago when that stuff didn't even exist. Nobody took care of the Voight Center. Nobody took care of the pool. I mean, you could have looked at it and known that. I went down there and I was kind of, embarrassed the way it looked, the way it was, it had been.
But how many of the employees that you have are able to do something? For instance, say we work something out where you got the weekends off towards the end of the year because you've been doing all this extra time. Who's going to be able to do what you do?
There's nobody on my staff that could do
Well,
it.
shouldn't there be some cross-training?
We're working on that.
Okay.
But it takes time. I mean, you got to realize, my skill set comes from 50 years of on-hand application.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I learned this by doing it. It's not something that you're going to be able to say, okay, here's a book, read it, now you can know how to do this.
No, I'm talking about like opening up the Voight Center.
That
thing.
I don't even open the Voight
Do
Center.
it on the weekends. You have some time off. Okay.
We're on a rotation. My team is on a rotation where when there's an event, everybody's on a rotation and you get an event.
Got it.
If there's one event this weekend, say Jesse has to work it. Next weekend, there's 3 events. Then Juan works one, Efren works one, and I work one, and we have a rotation. And that's not what my coming in on the weekends is about. That's just a small part. Perfect example is 4th of July picnic. I was here at 7 o'clock in the morning to help Holly get things set up. We had a sewage problem right at the start, had electrical problems, and I had plumbing problems. If I wouldn't have been there, they would have figured it out and been able to work through it. But it'd been a lot more difficult and put things behind schedule. Me being there on hand, having the skill set to take care of these problems immediately, means you don't have to bring someone else in. Means it's fixed immediately on the spot. Johnny can tell you when he has a piece of equipment go down, like one of his chainsaws or something like that, he brings it over to me. I can fix it in 10 minutes instead of even having to drive across town to get it fixed. It's not a big deal. But the savings is that piece of equipment's not sitting in a shop. We're not paying someone else to fix it.
And, you know, I know you do a lot of, I mean, you've done stuff with the Humane Society setting things up, but, I mean, my feeling is that people need to quit calling on you for those things. The Humane Society should not ask you to set things up. The HPCA should not ask you for your help. You work for the city, you don't, and so that would cut down some of the hours.
So what about when you have plumbing and electrical issues at the Voice Center?
That's different.
Yeah,
That's
but
not helping someone set up.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if he wasn't available to do it, you'd be calling a plumbing contractor, electrical contractor that's going to charge you.
But he can come in when he needs to, but I mean, that would cut down on a lot of his hours.
Also, if the plumbing thing didn't happen, he'd still be there setting up for the HPCA.
Actually, I came in because city's tables are being used. City chairs are being used. These are my responsibility. If I hadn't been there, 4th of July is a perfect example. If I hadn't been there to tear down and put stuff up, I had 47 chairs set out. They would have been soaking wet. Okay, those are padded chairs. You get them wet, they're going to mold, they're going to mildew. So me being available and being there and putting in the extra time, making sure the trash is empty, so we don't have trash spilled all over the place.
But see, they should do that. That's an HPCA event. That should not be on here.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm just.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, and I agree.
For a one-year employee who came in at a very high rate of pay, I think it is.
Well, I don't think he came in at a high rate of pay. I think he came in at the going rate of pay for that position.
Well, we had no say in it. He was hired.
That's irrelevant.
No,
It's
not
done. No,
irrelevant.
it's done.
It's not
And you can't go back and say,
No,
okay, well, now we're
you
going to lower
can't,
your
but-
rate.
But I'm
Your-
taking that into consideration when someone's asking for a $9,750 raise when he's been here for 1 year and he came in at a very generous salary, and there's just no way. I mean, it would be just completely demoralizing to people who have been here for 24 years who are making that amount, and who run big departments, and it's not equitable, and it would be I think it would be very demoralizing, and we're not a different municipality. We have a small budget, and I mean, I'm sure these guys would like a 15% raise. Who wouldn't? And these guys have worked every bit as hard as you have for a lot more years. And I think it's
Well,
not a good idea.
you said earlier that you can't compare our city to another city because it's comparing apples and oranges. You can't compare my department to their department because it's comparing apples and oranges.
Well, not really.
Well, but they're overseeing large numbers of people. He's overseeing a very small number of people, but
I mean,
large
I know
tangible
you do a lot. I know you do a lot, but
assets.
I think our goal should be to cut your hours down so you're not working as many hours and you get more time off. I think that would be much more acceptable.
Not to kick the can down the road, Kelly, but I certainly would hope you can look at increasing, getting a raise of 3%, and then next year, let's look at this and say, hey, you're in year number 2, this is what you've done now, okay, and look at possibly another raise at that time.
Well, and I'll take what y'all have decided that I I should get. But to be honest, I don't feel 3% is fair. I feel like I'm undercompensated. The medium for the position that I'm in, I'm not asking to be put at the top. I'm not even asking to be put at the medium. I'm just asking to be moved up close to it. My understanding, and I wasn't here, so I can't speak from any experience on this, was a number of years or a couple years back, all the directors, all the department heads were put at the same base salary. That's what I'm asking for.
So, I agree with everything. I agree with Debbie and I agree with Scott. You're worth your weight in gold. There's no question about it. And I agree that you save us a lot of money by being able to fix things. I also agree, you know, if people mistakes, then I realize that holds on you. I guess, and I work for the government, I've just never seen anybody get, whenever I've seen a 3% raise, those people walk on water, and you walk on water. But I've never seen anyone get a raise larger than that. And I realize you have a smaller group than they do, but you out of your group carry the load because they don't have the capacity to fix all the things that you do, and that's where the problem is. A lot of your things that you say with money.
And you're absolutely correct. And the problem comes in then is if you want someone that can carry part of that load, you have to increase their salary drastically to get someone who has that skill set. I mean, that's
Kelly, where did you get this information from? These stats?
on the salaries.
Yeah, I mean, the lowest 50,000, you know, and the highest is 1.
Actually, I don't have an exact number on that. That's why I put it at around 50,000. Actually, the mayor, I gave him the copy I had, and pulled it off a line.
Okay.
You know, I think there are a lot of unknowns in that data. I know that a lot of hours are spent and a lot of value's been received. I would think going forward, if comp can be tied to, like an incentive program to the performance of the Voight Center and be commensurate with its revenue growth, I don't think it's something we could get our hands around this summer in these meetings. But if we can agree on a raise, be it 3%, and with the intention of looking at something like that could be commensurate and incentive based, that could be a realistic objective going forward. Whatever you guys, what do you think?
Kelly, I don't think that your, I hate to use those terms, but I don't think your issue is the hours you work.
No.
It's the amount of money.
It's
So
like
if
I
you
said.
kept your hours, you kept your pay, it's still the issue of you're not paid as much as the other guys.
I'm still it's not even. I don't like comparing myself.
Oh, no,
I can't do
the
cheap.
other guys, the other directors,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I know the value that I bring to this marketplace. I know what it's worth. And I'm not even asking to be put up, at a high salary. I'm asking to be moved up into what's basically the medium. Yeah, I'd love to have another guy that I could say, hey, septic's acting up down at the park, can you go take care of it? I'm tied up with something else and have him do that. Unfortunately, I don't have that luxury as of yet. Training Jesse, he's learning a lot. Juan's learning a lot. I cross-train everything. My guys get tons of training. Anything I'm doing, I have them over there learning how to do it. Whether it ever happens again or not, that skill will cross over to something else.
So what I was just saying is that basically talking about compensation time, I don't think that's your issue. You're not worried about getting extra time off.
No, ma'am, I'm not. I mean, I work the time that I work because that's what's needed for the job. Whether Holly doesn't want me or we decide I'm not going to help Holly do any of her setups, fine. It's not a problem. If something breaks, I'm still going to work the same hours. I'm going to work whatever it takes to get the job done. That's who I am. You know, I don't live in this community, but this is my community. This is my town. I'm going to take care of it. Me and my guys, we are going to take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. You know, if y'all see fit that it's a 3% raise, then it's a 3% raise. I would like to have more. I think I'm worth more. I think I deserve more. But I come to y'all. That's the way it has to work.
It's not our money.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
You know, I mean, if it was, if we owned the company and we were talking that way, I mean, it's different, but it's the residents' money and they're not getting any kind of a raise like that.
And that's, and I agree with you. It's not, just like this isn't my money. That's why I run my department like it's a small business. I don't spend a penny that doesn't need to be spent. I cannot 100% justify I needed to spend that. At the end of the year, if I've got money left over my budget, then that money goes back. Period.
Well, right, I mean, everybody's money goes back.
So, I mean, I understand, I agree, it's not my money. And we've got to be good stewards. That's part of the job that I have to do, is being a good steward, taking care of the finances, making sure. That's why I do all the little stuff that I do to keep the costs down.
Suggest a 5%. I know not everybody's into that. That's about what I was. 3250. 68. 250. We'll work on it the next few years.
Can you live with 5% for now?
Yes, sir. I can live with whatever y'all give me. I told Oscar this last week, and I'll reiterate it. I don't know if everybody heard it. It doesn't matter if y'all give me a raise or not. I'm going to do the same job.
Right.
I'm dedicated to what I do. I don't do this because of what y'all pay me. I do this because this was a perfect fit. I like what I do. I like the people I work for, like the community I'm in.
Well, that shows for sure.
So, yeah, if y'all feel 5%'s great, next year I'll come back and ask for it again. I mean, I'm just,
Don't do that.
that's just,
You ain't gonna.
He does it all the time.
You ain't gonna get it.
Well,
I feel like I should be at the median income is my point.
I'm sure they feel the same way.
And they're probably pretty close.
No, I don't think they are.
About 9,000 off.
Okay.
But they, they make what we can
Janice,
afford.
Sure.
is this decision one that needs Michael Brenner's input? Does it need to be in a council meeting format?
No, sir. This is what the budget workshop is for you all to decide salaries and so forth, and it's appropriate to this budget. So you would be.
Plurality could agree and that could finalize that decision.
Well, what would happen is if you want to make it a separate decision at a council meeting, you certainly can. You have
But
that
if I
purview.
didn't want to.
But if you didn't want to, we get consensus at in these budget sessions,
Okay.
and then when you finally vote on it, it would be in September.
Okay. If you guys want to propose a consensus decision and agree on that, we can move forward and get to the next topic.
It's not a vote issue.
And you do so much for us. I know if I worked at City Hall, and I found out you guys, I would be sick. I'd be looking for a job. I would just be bad. Because I wouldn't know what to do. I've been here all these years, and I wasn't making that much money. It just really a hard cut. If they put out 3 or they put out 5, I'm okay with that.
I would give you more if everybody would agree to it, but I'm okay with 5. I do know not in the public sector, in the government sector, in the private sector, everybody negotiates their own salaries independently. Doesn't matter how much you make, or how much you make. It's everybody's negotiated their own salary. And if they can get more, so be it. I mean, I know companies and I know people that work for companies where the same two people do the same two jobs and their salaries are 30 or 40% different. It's whatever but they don't know it. That's true.
That's the problem, they don't know it.
I know. And that's,
Local governments, right?
Or just private companies.
well, I just
The
said
business
private company.
world.
I just said that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just the way I look at things. I look at things from a business standpoint and from a government standpoint. And I know from a government standpoint, we have to look at it as saving money and keeping everybody happy and not rocking the boat and all that sort of thing. But I'm a boat rocker, so that's how I look at it.
In that case, I want 9%.
Hey, you can ask for 100,000%. It's whatever
Oh, can we go-
it's
go
whatever
back?
we agree
Wait
to
a
give
minute.
you.
I didn't know I had the boat rocker next to me. Damn it.
A variable that's going to challenge our ability to finish these meetings quickly is regarding health insurance, and we're going to tackle that one next Wednesday. But that's an element as part of payroll and HR costs because they've gone up so significantly. But if we can concur on an outcome here that meets everyone's satisfaction, I say we do it.
We have two options.
Compromise at 4.
I'm leaning towards 3%.
Well, I am too.
So,
I said 5, so.
You've got the swing vote.
It's great being the rookie, isn't it?
It's hard being on council.
Well, now you tell me.
Should have called me.
I warned you.
Should have called me.
So my choices are 3 and 5.
3 or 5.
I like 3 and 5.
Yeah. He likes 3 and 5, but I think 3 or 5 is correct.
I was only 5.
Okay. All right.
So
All
did you
right.
do the 5% then Memo has?
Well, I think
Put something in the rules or whatever for it's set to what the highest raise can be if you walk on water for,
no.
No, each council's different.
We expect a little water walking. The flippers or what have you.
Yeah, thank you.
No, and to his credit, asking for more to help him get what he has, and I think that's good. All right. Now, did we taking the time to explain it?
I understand. I mean, I ran a business. I had a budget. But you don't get anything if you don't come and ask. And that's just the way it is.
I would agree. I believe we also talked about Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
Didn't we? We talked about the phones and.
We're going to talk about Parks and Rec.
All right. So, following the
done with
different
general, so we had
accounts, the different general categories.
Have we finished with the general fund?
Yes.
Or we finished with all Kelly's accounts?
Yes.
Then you would go to revenue, sir.
2 revenue.
What about the venue and the civic fund?
Well, we had to finish the 100 account
Oh,
first.
okay. Sorry.
So
Revenue.
this is where Miss Anita comes into play. Yay!
This under budget summary or under?
It's in your
So I have a call into Frost to make sure of that. I think the answer is yes. But as I'm looking at the lease folder, that one is not in there. So it's not in there. So I'm calling them to resend me copies of all those documents, just to make sure. But at this time, we are currently only paying for one vehicle, which is the PD vehicle, and I think it's like $1,182 a month, $1,182 a month. And that's the only thing we're paying to Frost. So I would imagine if there's something out there, Elaine at Frost would give me a call and say, hey, Anita, where's the payment for this other vehicle? But I've not received that call. So that's what I think, but I want the paperwork so that we can make sure.
What's $11.82 a month?
The
The
PD
PD
truck.
lease. What is it, like a Ford
Yeah,
Explorer?
I have one alibi on our budget, if I could just hit that real quick so I can get that done, is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So, somehow we left out the radios we talked about in our last budget meeting from your sheet. It was on mine, but it wasn't on yours. So I've had Anita add that. However, the payment And I don't understand how this works, because we budget for a car, and then I'm still paying on it the following year, and I haven't figured that out yet. But the amount we thought we owed is less. So on line, the capital outlay under PD, under vehicles, where it says 810.
Do you have a new
That's
set
been
for
reduced
the mayor? You gave everybody?
to 29. It would be 521, 810. Okay. We brought that one down, excuse me, to 39,511. It wasn't 46, it's 39,511. That includes a payoff of 9,460 from an Explorer you guys approved last year.
Okay, hold on, we're at 521, 810,
Page 9.
10.
and what are we doing with that vehicle?
So we had a payoff of 9,460. That's what we're paying on. So we still owe 9,000. And then we got the vehicle for this year. You add that up and it's 39,511. Okay, so that was reduced about 7,000 from what we thought.
Okay.
And then the radios were added into the line right below that, the 820.
Oh, equipment?
Under equipment.
The 17,000.
So now it is
29 instead of 23?
instead of 23, that one goes to 29. Okay. So the difference there being about 4,000 after we did everything.
4,000 in the plus.
In the plus, but that's our radios and the stuff we talked about already, right? So the radios are about 10,000, but after we did all the math over again, we're only looking at a 4,000 from what you saw last week difference. Okay. So you have that. If you have any questions, happy to answer it. But that's where we're at.
Okay.
Okay. That's my alibi. Thank you, sir.
There aren't any other adjustments in the general fund, rather?
No, the only other adjustments were the
Health.
Health insurance, which the spreadsheet, that one right there? Yeah, this one right here. We're showing it now at a 50% increase of what it was budgeted last year. Yeah, and so everybody's numbers changed.
Where's the spreadsheet?
That is the best on the quotes that we're getting is 50%. The other ones are going up to like 75, 83. 50 is the best.
Is that spreadsheet at the end of all this?
Here you go, sir. You can have that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
But I know that the mayor is looking to ways to possibly help us with that, because even if please correct me if I'm wrong, even with the 50% increase, we still have something left in that reserve, which is a 519 something, correct?
Yeah, we'll have about 200 something.
200,000 left? Okay.
So what is the total increase in insurance come to you?
What is the total increase?
Like dollar amount, is that what you're talking about?
Do you mean
Like 80, I thought.
50% increase? I don't think.
You know,
They're not all spread out in different accounts like that.
Well, what we did was, we took what we budgeted last year, and that was based on 12% increase, which is what they had anticipated being. I think it might have been, in some cases, a little bit lower than 12% because we moved from, was it TMRS, is that what it is, to Travelers? TML to Travelers. And so it went down a little bit in some areas.
I think you're talking about the health instead of the workman's compensation.
Yes,
health.
yeah, the health.
You know, on the court category, we had budgeted 13,000, and it's been changed
to 18. Yeah, because we went up 50%,
Oh, I see.
and now we've
Okay,
added an
gotcha.
employee as well.
Gotcha,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry, Debbie, I misunderstood
That's
you.
okay, yeah.
So what we did is we took what we budgeted last year and just increased it by 50% because we're pretty close to that number. And if they're saying it's going to go up 50%, we took that number because we're pretty close to that right now, and increased it, anticipating what it might go up to next year.
So it's like 100,
When I was looking,
something like that.
yeah.
For all of
it's-
those three, for all
Yeah,
those
the
four
increase
departments?
is over 100,000. Yeah,
Three,
like
nine,
over
7, 0.
100,000.
Hold on, let me do the math.
It's just too much.
We have a broker that shops this for us.
Yeah, we have Wortham Insurance, so even if you were to go to an individual or a different carrier, you're going to get the same rates because they shop everybody. Same thing, everybody shops the same rate for us. What it is we're a group of under 50 employees, so that puts us in a certain category. and some of you have been on the council before will remember them coming annually to say, this is the year, it's gonna go up tremendously, and we've gone up like 5%, then we've gone up 8%, I think last year was 12, and this is the year that we're getting hit. We've even had a call into her, the mayor and I, to say, okay, what if we decide to go over the 50%, 50 employee mark, okay? I realize that we would be subject to FMLA, but really, would it help us in the long run? What would our figures be if we went to 52%? I don't know if you want to talk about that, Mayor. I know you wanted to talk about that next time, but, you know.
Is this something TML can help with or no?
Well, probably not, because TML is even a larger group trying to get all the municipalities in there. So when we've tried that in the past, it's about average. And I will say the different providers through Wortham are a little bit better than having to go through the TML PEBA account that they have. It's an alliance.
They're one of the biggest. It's looking back 4 years, total group health for the town was around 140,000. Looking at next year, it's looking at 300,000. And that's the single biggest change in any category for the town by far.
And we're not the only ones. All of the municipalities are getting hit and going crazy.
Nearly all the others have gone to a contributory pay plan where the employee pays a part and the employer pays a part, and we'll have to look at options. And no, we've still been paying 100% of the employees' health care insurance, and this may be the year we may have to. Well, I think we'll need to rethink that going forward and find a.
So
for the
total
for the 5 departments or the 6 departments is looking like it'll be about $300,000 this coming year.
336 and 7
versus 140 4 years ago.
Last year we budgeted 218,968. So the increase that we're showing, budgeted, not spent, obviously, is $117 and 740. 117,740.
So we have those figures in from the insurance, right? That's a hard figure.
No, it's not a hard and fast. They're still shopping, and we're still trying to.
And
get
there's
a lower
still all the
rate
variables,
possible.
deductibles, and copays that tinker.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure that the 50% option is likely to have higher copays and higher deductibles than the 83% option, even from Aetna.
They're going to be coming to the council in August to give you the various options that you can decide on, and then the council would have to make a decision in September, a vote.
And do we pay dependent coverage?
No, if we want to pay,
Employees pay
we pay
dependents.
that ourselves, but the council pays 100% of employee.
Right, and so I'm hoping to have helpful information for our meeting next Wednesday that'll help pin this down a little better, and because it impacts everything else that everybody else wants. So,
Gotta tell you, guys, when you're looking, not to jump back to like your stats about your position, okay? It doesn't mention anything about health insurance being paid for, So
But everybody gets that.
I don't. They pay half of
everybody.
it.
No, here in Highland Park.
I understand that, but he's also comparing to other municipalities. So with that 3% or 5%, I just think that there's information here that's not full information on statistics on what's 50. Some guys making 50,000 is the lowest, but is he getting insurance? Okay, those are other things that are playing into someone's salary. Okay, when it comes to a raise too, you're talking about this, So I just think that we might have not looked at all the different industry standards. Okay, when it came to 5% versus 3%.
all right.
So are you ready to go into the revenues then?
Yeah.
You want to go ahead and talk about the revenue?
And so on the ad valorem, we estimated 2,800,000, and that was based. We estimated low. So if you look on, I guess 2 pages behind it, you'll see the Bear County preliminary totals, the grand totals on there.
This is what you passed out tonight, is that what we're looking?
Where are we at here?
Looking at page 3 of this printout.
Where it says 100 general fund budgeted amounts, and it starts with 100,
Are we still on the general fund?
400.001. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going over the revenues now because we've gone over all the expenses.
And this is page 3, you
And
said?
so,
It's actually page 1.
and
I'm sorry.
it looks like this. It says GL budget report, and it has 100, 400.011.
Right.
Gotcha.
Page one. And then the page that I'm referencing regarding where I got that's under the budget
Oh, yeah.
summary section.
Back in the binder.
That's in the old one,
Yeah.
right. And
Let's just bounce around a little bit here. Okay, we're good.
so when I did the calculations, if we used last year's tax rate, we would receive $2,941,963. So we budgeted a little bit low when we said $2,800,000 because this is not complete yet. They still have homeowners who are going to dispute the amounts that they gave them. And in fact, we received one, I believe this is Friday's date, July 6th, and that went down a little. However, after I did the math, it went down to $2,933,340. So it went down a little, but it's still higher than that $2,800,000 that we had initially budgeted for. I believe the final one will come very soon. I mean, I'd imagine it'd be here within a week or two, and then we'll have the final number. I'm hoping it doesn't go much lower than this. So I think we're going to be okay with that $2,800,000.
We're also expecting another quarter's worth of sales tax. I think that's still pending.
For the sales tax?
Yeah, for the second quarter, because it usually comes in this part of July.
Yes, so the second line, the sales tax, or are you talking about the ad valorem?
I'm talking about sales.
Yes, yeah. We'll have another quarter coming in there.
Anytime.
And what we've done in each of those line items, we've been very conservative. We've looked at what's come in the past, and we've looked at what we've received this year. We anticipated perhaps we could go up maybe a little, but we haven't gone up very much. So we've been very conservative with these numbers in the hopes that we will absolutely reach them and hopefully surpass them. Let's see.
So that extra $133,000 just goes right to insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe.
pretty quickly.
Well, maybe.
And my hope is that will come in lower. You know, if they are shopping around, I'm hoping it will come in lower because 50% just seems so excessive, especially if for the past 6 years it's been 12%, 50%.
Yeah,
just
but we
seems-
knew it was coming, so we knew. So
Did they?
yes, so we knew it was coming. It's not a surprise.
And so we've prepared for it.
Your court revenue would probably cover that. Same.
Double the workload. That's right.
You know what, I was wondering, okay, so the Fiesta medals, those pay for themselves, right?
Under miscellaneous.
Under miscellaneous, is where we count it? Okay.
Right. It's just that I can't put a revenue to an expense account. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we spend it in one account, and the revenue comes in under miscellaneous.
Okay.
Were there any others that jump out at you that maybe we could pull some detail on?
You know, it might be helpful to point out that historically we've included Clear Channel in with franchises.
Yes, that's
And
a
it's
good one.
separated in this budget, and we've separated it from the others.
Right.
And
Yeah, so what I did is we have a telecom HB House Bill 1777, and then we have Time Warner. And in the past, those were two separate line items. But this year, what I've done is I've combined the two to have a total of $40,000 that will come in with both of them, because Time Warner no longer comes in as Time Warner. It comes in as
Spectrum.
no, I think there's something else.
Oh, yeah, it's under a different name.
Yeah,
right.
it's a different name. So
Yeah.
every year it seems like it's a new name. Gosh, I probably shouldn't have said that. But so what we're thinking is let's just call them all telecom.
What is HB 1770?
House
It
bill.
was a House bill that regulated the franchise fee percentage they had to pay us. Yes, and so someone way back in the day labeled it HB 177. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, telecom. So the telecom is
Harold
what sort of
Barkley.
accuses.
So with the revenue that we have, which you said you or conservative on, everyone having all their expenditures in, it still brings us down to a reserve of how much left over now
Okay,
in
let's
the
look
line
at
item.
that. And we'll look at
In the
general
100
government.
line in the general fund.
In general government, that capital expense reserve right now is at $209,139.
And that's the 519.890
Yes.
line item. Okay.
Now that is going to go up because we've made a few adjustments.
519, what did you say?
So if you go to account number 519.890, you will see that we have that capital expense reserve, and that's a line item that, in case somebody doesn't know, you want to tell them what that is?
Right, and so that's a line item that this organization uses as a reserve. And so a lot of times the department heads will say, hey, I'd like to make a budget adjustment. You know, I didn't expect this repair, and now I'm going to be over budget. Can we make a budget adjustment to increase that line item? We take it out of here.
You know, I know there's a time factor on the Clear Channel contract. I think it's every 5 years. There's an increase to us of the equivalent of 1% a year, so there's like a 5% or $10,000. I think it won't be this coming year, but it'll be the year after, I think.
You're right.
Okay.
And, okay, what's up with the tree committee?
So the tree committee has its own fund now, and so you can see, is it at zero? Let's see.
That's what I was-
It's at zero. So if you look in your folder, you'll see, let's see, where is it?
And I'm not sure that everybody knows, but all the permits that we get for trees in the admin department, that revenue goes to the tree committee,
Right.
not in the general fund, just to them.
I think we have, so we probably don't
Does she
have
do
to
it?
vote, no, because we don't have to vote on anything on that, because isn't it theirs alone?
Yes, but it needs to be transferred to their fund. In other words, all the permits that we get for tree permits
Right.
throughout the year needs to be transferred to their.
But they're still considered a 100 fund.
Yes, it's a general fund.
Yeah, they're still
I see
considered
them
100.
identified as tree,
Yeah,
but
yeah, they're like 100, 100, or 150.
721. Okay.
Yeah,
But, okay, so last year it was at 14,000, right?
right.
Yeah.
So how come it's zero?
Well, we put it at zero because we can't count that revenue for our own
In other words, it's not
expenses.
extra revenue coming in.
It's not
Well, when you
part
get hit on the building revenue, it's already there, so we don't want to double revenue us. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Because
right.
we transfer it over to the tree whenever
Yeah.
it comes in.
It's
Yeah.
not ours to spend or to include in our budget.
You're right.
So the tree revenue money is made from people leaving permits to trim their trees?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And, instead of going to the general fund, well, it's still in the general fund, but we don't spend it as part of our budget because the tree committee uses that
We resist the
to,
temptation.
for oak wilt prevention, and they recently had this program where they would pay a resident a certain amount of money if they put in a certain amount to combat their oak wilt and so forth. And I still think they have that program going, as a matter of fact.
Should we let them use it to take down dead trees?
How much candy have you
Yeah,
had?
but that's that program. When we have a copy of it on that little plexiglass, you have to have certain criteria met. Yeah, you've got to submit the paperwork. They'll review it, and then they will go ahead and help you with that.
Jeez.
Actually, that's gonna come up in council this month.
Red Oak.
Oh, it's gonna be,
Yeah, I've got something I'm bringing in on it.
And since I've been here, no expenses have gone out on that. So do you know of any? Because
I know that they are.
Are there
They would
still in
like
the
to
works?
combine with the Hollywood Park Community Association on National Night Out and do a whole program. And they're talking about doing some stuff with Red Oak, and so I think they're going to be spending money at that event.
okay, yeah, there's not a lot of activity in that at this time. But perhaps if there's a project that's going to be happening with the trees, there may be more. In which case, we'll have to look at that in a little more detail.
so sales tax comes in quarterly?
Mhm.
Okay. And we're at 587,858 year to date with sales tax. That's just in the general fund, not the dedicated fund.
Correct.
So that's awesome.
Well, let me show you.
6 months. They said, I talked to the general contractor yesterday, or Friday, and he said, He expects 4 months, but he's estimating 6 to be on the safe side.
The new business by the Holiday Inn should be open at the end of this month. And that's the, no, this is an office building that's next door to the Holiday Inn, right off the access road. It's a one-story.
Trash.
It's a one-story, yeah, it's a one-story office building. I think it's going to have 2 tenants. I think it may be a doctor's office and a real estate-related business.
Just to the left of the Holiday.
Yes, yes.
And I'm sorry, the sales tax comes in monthly.
Monthly, okay.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
good.
I know you're thinking of the hotel.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
you're
thank
thinking
you.
of the hotel tax, because
Hotel.
we had just had that on our, yeah.
So for the
Gotcha.
general fund, were we thinking, Mayor and Council, of keeping the same rate that we're at now, or were we
For ad valorem,
for the tax rate
Property
period,
taxes.
property tax?
I was strongly in favor of leaving it exactly where it was. Yes. And with no change to the exemption or anything.
I don't think we need changes then.
Um,
Okay.
I think we need,
Okay, that's the entire general fund then, Mayor.
yeah. All right. And that having been said,
With our other fund.
we're going back into the other funds?
Mhm, yes, sir.
All right.
Where are we at now?
We've completed the
Back to
general
the
fund.
binder and looking at the birthday fund. No, yeah, birthday fund. The party fund.
Blue, yellow, or red, or green?
Let's go to grants and donations.
Different colors.
Oh, yeah, because I have a different color.
Yeah. What is it? Is it Court Technology?
Yes, ma'am.
Court Technology. is
Court
the-
technology. Want to start with that one? Court security or technology?
Court Technology.
That's under 110, correct?
Yes. Who's our court expert? They'd like to take over, so
110.
take it away.
Okay.
Is that yours, Janice? Court tech? Anita?
Court tech, yeah.
All right. Criminal history.
Mhm.
Here we go.
And you go to the 4,000, first time we've done that historically.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
pull it up. I'm
Okay.
gonna look at it.
The story.
The general fund?
Mhm.
I'm sorry?
What we talk about, are we done with the general fund?
Unless you want to talk about something else.
Engineering fees? Is that something that we spend that amount every year?
Or more, depending on what we're doing in Hollywood Park historically. If we are, like, it depends if we're doing like a street situation or what have you. Sometimes it's a little bit more.
I can,
Go ahead, you can.
I might be able to help answer that because
Thank
we
you.
might be considerably less than budgeted one year, but we may need every bit of it the following year. As we didn't use any of our street money in 17 or in 18, but we're about to embark on a street project that we want to submit. We want to get proposed bids back from. We'll be announcing in July at the council meeting. The engineering fees are typically about 15% of the job, so that'll eat up what we haven't spent.
Okay.
That's,
I just don't, is that just an amount that you put in there every year? Because it hadn't really changed.
yeah, because we didn't,
Yeah, it's usually about that amount, and it's very, it depends on a lot of different variables. Like this year, for whatever reason, we had a lot of people that wanted to get hooked up to a gas line. So, of course, residents have to pay a fee. And then, of course, the engineers have to come in because if they're going to do a street cut, we make sure that the engineer is involved. So that way, when they finish the project, they left it as it was when they initiated, and we don't have any issues there.
yeah, that was the reason, another reason why they did all they laid in the gas lines up and down Danella in the event that any of the 4 or 5 people that were still on propane wanted to convert to gas, we wouldn't have to do a street cut.
Okay.
When they pay the fee to hook up to the gas, does that go to CPS or does that go towards the engineer fee?
That goes to CPS. Now, we do have a fee that they also, receivable, that they do have to pay part of the engineering fee
'Cause they-
also.
they get a permit.
And as it dwindles down, they get the refund back on it if it's, but the initial contact with the engineer, the city pays, and then the resident pays the rest.
So CPS doesn't pay any of the engineering fees as far as the roads go, if they have to cut roads or anything like that?
Right.
No.
They don't cover any of that?
No.
Well, are they the ones that profits? Our residents profit.
That would be my question, that's a great question, that would be my question, is
The
they're the
they
ones.
would pay because they're gonna be getting money for the rest, the
If it's a street cut, it's their property. They would pay for it. They do it because if it's not on the resident's property, it's CPS's property. So that's their expense. That's their engineering and all that.
I thought everything like up to the meter, whether it's a gas meter or electric meter, is CPS property.
Right, and the meter's on the property, so a street cut would constitute CPS.
Covering it.
Yeah, yeah.
Why don't they pay the engineer?
The engineer is paying for the part that's on. That's a complicated question. I think the engineer, I guess.
The resident pays sometimes for the engineering fees and so forth, but the engineer comes on board to ensure that we don't have inappropriate, and Kelly can probably say this better than I can, filling.
Why doesn't CPS, if CPS owns everything up to the meter, whether it's gas or electric, and they're either cutting or they're running a power line or whatever, I mean, they're the ones, in my opinion, that should be covering the cost of cutting, putting in their infrastructure.
Yeah, they get a fee from the resident, but they don't pay for anything for the engineer for the street cut.
I mean, when SAWS comes in and runs lines, don't they cover the cost of cutting the hole and filling it back in and paving and whatever it is?
But we pay the city engineer to go out there and ensure that it's done correctly.
Yeah, there's some oversight that we invest in.
Is that overkill? Do you think SAWS and CPS and the utility companies would do it right to begin with?
No, they don't.
I think we have.
They do not.
We help them know where the other
Sometimes
lines are
we
too.
catch them in the act of doing it before they even come in here and pull the permit, and the permit's free.
I have to watch the subs.
Yeah, you got to watch them like a hawk.
I was wondering that about the AT&T painting
Yeah,
and what
remember?
they're doing, because right now they're not doing street cuts; they're just doing parallel
Fiber
painting.
optic.
They're laying fiber optics.
So they're drilling and laying cable underground.
They're doing horizontal boring,
Right.
and they're running cable underground. It's all fiber
They're
optics.
doing that on the gas thing too? Were they doing horizontal drilling?
They
and
tried,
they
well,
were
but
getting all kinds of stuff?
the gas is a lot deeper than fiber. Fiber's
Yeah.
only 18 inches. Gas lines, they're 3-4 foot underground. And that's when they got into the rock.
But that wasn't our problem.
No.
No, they're not.
The problem we had was they were here 6 months longer than they should have been.
Okay. Sorry.
Change the subject, but I saw on the neighborhood thing about somebody going door to door soliciting for the pest control. Is that the guy you were talking about?
I couldn't open the rest of that message. It said it was already removed. It already had gotten pulled. How does it get pulled like that? The homeowner did?
I've seen the same young man in around Moreno. He's never knocked at my door. I've seen him in other houses, but I didn't know what he was trying to sell. So I
wonder.
just wondered if it was that Mojo or.
I wonder, Moxie. Mojo. That's a different product altogether, I believe. It's
Sorry to get off track.
No, it's okay.
I'm still learning.
One other thing on this, school guards, crossing guards, what is that?
We get even though we don't have one, we
have
get
to
a
protect the children.
percentage off of the ticket for school crossing guard fund. But we can use it for general, so yeah. So if we had school in here that would pay for that, yeah.
If we were.
Get funded by the foundation, it's a project we saw that nice.
Is that me? Is that you? Or not me?
The school buses or school to stop, is that considered a crossing or something?
Well, we pay into a fund at a very citation.
What are you doing, Twix?
Give you a crossing guard process.
Are all of them left? All left. I'm left.
Okay, where are we at now, ma'am?
So
Good
we
questions.
were at 110 Court Tech revenue, and the Court Tech revenue is for every conviction that receives, I believe, either $3 or $4 for every conviction. And from 2012 to 2013, we're averaging about 3,855. It went down in 2014 to about 2,800, and then in 2015 it went up to 4,800. So it's right around that $4,000. And I would anticipate that with the way that it's improved this past year, or it's gone up, that we would meet that 4,000.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah. We're currently at 2,652, but what we do is quarterly, we move that number from the general fund into this fund. Because, you know, when someone pays their ticket or whatever it is, they give you one check. And of that check, it all goes into general fund. $3 has to go to court technology, $3 has to go to court security. So quarterly, we move that money out, and we have not done that because the quarter just ended, I guess, 9 days ago? And so we're going to make sure that we do that. But, you know, you're looking at about $4,000 probably when you end this year.
And are there restrictions on what we can use this money for?
There are,
Yes.
yeah.
From an accounting perspective, a rampant increase in crime is a good thing.
Well,
Okay.
one way to look at it.
Okay.
Pain.
Yeah.
So we can only spend on things.
And that's what we
The
do
court
now.
technology.
And since it goes into that big ball of general, of course,
Better
technology,
shackles.
we use part of that money for our encode software and so forth.
Yeah.
And you'll see on the next page.
Yeah,
We
so-
use supplies about $1,000 and $3,000 for court software.
I've sought the EDC's support, and it sounds very promising. We'll have support for the $13,000 needed for court software and using EDC funds for that. So that will help.
So 120 million?
It's part of my IT package. We had a very productive meeting last Friday, and I'm going to repackage things as an equipment type of package and then as an IT communication related package. It turns out that the state requires it to be packaged in like $10,000 bundles so that it meets the rules of the state. And so that's certainly something we can do, and that'll help offset costs and items requested by fire and police and Parks and Rec and admin and court. So I'm real hopeful we'll get at least $60,000 from the EDC with a goal of getting a little over $100,000. So, yeah, that was a very good meeting Friday. Wouldn't you say? It was, yeah, very, very helpful. But it's a state rule. The $10,000 limit, Mike, was a state regulated thing. Was it? No. It's just a complication.
I'm sorry?
She was asking if we have to have an EDC.
No, you're not.
It's
required to
not
have
required, and I think the point has been brought up before, and it's something worth exploration. I think if we can do a good job with use of it this year, it's something. It can be changed with a council decision, and then the money, that part of the tax revenue, would go into the general fund instead of the EDC fund. As we continue to lose out on possible retail space to have generally used an EDC type of budget for, it warrants consideration.
Do we have any land left?
We have small amount. We have a small amount. You know, the rest of the cul-de-sac where the new business opening later this month is. I mean, it has a small parcel. Yeah, I think, and then we've got 3 or 4 lease spaces still in Galleria Oaks, and that's it. That's all I'm aware of.
Filling up the Killen building.
I mean,
Filling up the Killen building.
Filling up the Killen building.
What the goal of the EDC, what it's supposed to do, and I'm sure she'd like to
Oh,
know the exact
yeah,
nature of the.
If it can help us attract businesses to move within our boundaries, and presenting us as a town that they should want to build or to move their business to, they've worked with. Yes, that's. I would say they could answer that question better than I. They've tried to focus on marketing the town as a place.
Did EDC have anything to do with the mechanic shop coming in?
No.
I don't believe so. They presented the mechanic shop presented to EDC.
What's the last business EDC bought?
Good question.
Starbucks.
They were real involved in that, and in working with the Galleria Oaks folks.
I mean, the way we were discussing this, and as long as you're promoting the commercial entities and that Hollywood Park is a viable community to bring your business, that is their job.
Mm-hmm.
And with the police and the fire department, we were discussing how can they use that to promote commercial entities and why they wanna move to Hollywood Park and
Yeah.
fastest response time, you know?
For police and fire.
High-tech equipment, like, you know, state-of-the-art equipment that we would have, that you would promote in a, whether you do a packet, whether it be electronic
Yeah.
letter that goes out to all the cities, all the corporate entities, you know, hey, this is what's happening in Hollywood Park, you know, EDC is doing this.
Do they do that? Is that what they're doing? I mean,
That's
do
what
they-
I was kind of pushing.
Yeah, it was Mike's. His.
Are they?
It's a good time for us to do that.
I mean, how do they?
Well, there's a new guy that's in charge.
Yeah.
And he really wants to get a lot of things done. And I think there's a really good opportunity here to have a really good working relationship with the council and the EDC. And I was really impressed.
I think.
You guys will be too.
I think
You guys in uniform.
Mike was
I'm
amazing.
not saying they were doing a bad job, I'm just saying.
Mike Drury.
Mike
Drury, okay, yeah.
To promote, I mean, what kind of things?
With the PEG account, where are we getting that money from? Can you remind me which
I think it's coming
You know-
from sales tax. I'm not sure.
No matter if you've got no spoken in a cell phone.
I know it's,
Yes, I believe so. It's the PEG, because for the PEG,
Well, I'm looking at like strip clubs, you know, it's really good.
Yeah.
it's from the PEG. I think it's under.
Place our kids can work.
You know,
It's
tax.
it's actually conveying us as a town. Like Mike was saying, if EDC does some marketing to convey that we have the latest equipment for our radios and all of that, quickest response time, and we can recruit new fire and police people because we have all the latest tools.
We can help them here. Yes, I just don't, I'm not sure where it comes from, but yeah.
Potential walkthrough with a new business. Well, this is why you want to move your business to Hollywood Park.
What's the balance right now?
Response time. Fire department, police department, like I said, state-of-the-art equipment when it comes to communications and whatever, you know, but that was the. what I was
Do you know how many pieces we have available?
Again, it's a handful. It's not a lot, and but they can also negotiate tax abatements if it helps break a tie between us and some other parcel, and or other kinds of support. And it's all right. They have a meeting next week. I'm not sure. I think there was talk about maybe with some sort of garden, an herb garden or something. EDC was, I don't know.
You wanted to do a community garden.
A community garden. Yes, that's what it was.
I need the state-of-the-art equipment he's talking about.
I'd like to.
Say that this lot across the street
Yeah.
is owned by my cousin.
Oh, okay.
I don't know whether it's
All right.
kind of a swap.
I don't know.
The city to have that one instead of that one.
We could build a minor league ball field.
we'll find out, because I know it's a part of another one that comes in and the auditors move it over. But right now I can't.
They're the one we keep having to get in contact with because they won't cut the grass.
But I'm not
Yeah.
sure. That's a good question.
Let's find out.
All right.
We need more information.
So we've now identified the owner that doesn't mow his lot. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Austin. Thank you. He will remain nameless.
Back on detail?
And that's streaming too, Oscar. So.
Yes. Reach out to your cousin. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No names.
Security.
Yes, sir. Yes. Crime is up, and now how about court security? Anita, would you like to address 120?
Sure.
Now we
So
get all these
court-
criminals running around, and we got
Yeah, so
some
court
security.
technology is $4 from every conviction. Court security is $3 from every conviction. So we've budgeted $3,000.
So court security pays for the policeman's salary to be here that evening?
For bailiffs for court?
There you go.
Yes.
So if the judge convicts more people, then we get more money.
Bingo. It's all magic.
Yeah, and we seem to be on track, at least throughout history, even up until as far as 2012. We had an ending balance of 2,877, and that number has not fluctuated very much throughout the years since then. Right now, we have 1,989, but again, we're going to move over the money from general fund that belongs to this. We need to move it over because we do it quarterly.
Roll over from year to year, or you just budget that amount each year?
we budget this amount each year, at least that's what it seems like.
We don't roll it
But
over.
I don't think we.
It's not like cell phone minutes.
No, I don't think so, yeah.
Cell phone, I gotta
Cell
kick out of
phone
that.
minutes, yeah.
How long
Calling-
have they stayed stable? Or
As far as I can see here, 2012. Yeah, 2012 was 2,887.
aren't we doing more?
A
What's
little
that?
spike in the number of.
Yeah,
We do, but it depends upon that conviction. We got a lot of people doing that. We are required now to say you can take deferred and defensive driving, and we get about $10
House
off of the
arrest.
deferred or defensive driving. Don't get much on those.
Yeah, these are convictions.
No public service, like Oscar
We had
Chambers,
we had a
Pleasant
man.
Hill?
Well, I shouldn't say this out loud. We had
Now we're talking.
people that were scheduled to do public service. One man just had 8 hours he had to do, and he came back to court to show cause because he didn't do the 8 hours. So they had to roll back to his fine of $200 and something. He would have just done the 8 hours of community service, but you know, it's funny.
He didn't want to dress in the bunny costume at least.
To say 8 hours, heck, I could do that standing on my head.
I need some more community service people working for me. That keeps my overhead down.
You know what I'm
And
thinking?
I wash all the police trucks.
Hey, we're thinking. We got some help for you.
I'm looking for, I can get an intern.
It can, because what we'll do is if we need
We'll get a
interns,
free
we can tell the
intern.
judge, if it's someone that,
I need
I hate to
someone
say
to
the
be
word
the
indigent,
bunny
but they
police.
just cannot pay and they're behind the bar, we tell them and they will do community service. The problem is having them show up. What's next,
We
ma'am?
have to go get them.
So the next category is grants and donations,
Yes.
and that's 130, tab 130.
Yes.
Typically, those grants and donations will come in through fire department and PD, and that's where we put your LEOC, is that how you say that?
Leo, sir?
Talk
LEOC?
it, take it away, Jody.
Yeah,
Base, it's close
About
every
the
year,
same
like that is
every
from
year.
the governor's office, and it's because we're required, both of us are required to get 40 hours continuing education every 2 years. And the states that usually we're going to enforce paying for that training. So typically we get about the same, 13 to 14, that gets about 900. Based on how many people you have. Gotcha.
Johnny, did we ever get the outcome of the grant that was requested for the fire department? Did that work out?
The grant
Yeah, there was, regarding that
for
equipment?
the pump?
Yes.
No, we didn't get that grant. That's why you had to approve that check.
Okay. We didn't, they say why? Didn't they say why we didn't get it? It just,
They didn't say why. They just posted and we were not one of them.
and on that check,
Usually has to do with medium income, the fact that we're not out in the sticks.
that was for the brush truck pump, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so on that one, we paid it out of the general fund,
Mhm.
but EDC had agreed, we went back and looked at the notes, EDC had
Yes.
agreed that they would pay 5,700 of it, so we've moved that expense to EDC and we've sent money to general to cover that. So I think the cost to you is probably about $200, because I think it came out to a little bit more.
remember that was a provisional. That was a provisional one that we did. That was quite a bit.
No, they have more than that.
They
They have over a half million.
140,000.
Over a $500,000. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
That's why we're going to hit it hard. Going to hit it very hard. Ocean 12. I agree.
Right.
Okay,
And
just to let you know,
Birthdays
the
and
EDC
holidays?
has $535,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Gonna hit that hard. Yeah. Calm down. Down, boy. Down, boy. Yeah. Kickapoo. All right. Peg. Peg, is Peg here?
Always forget who Peg is.
Peg is.
Public Educational Government Access Channel.
Peg.
And right now, working on getting a public access channel
Yes.
for Hollywood Park so we can target those people who always call me and say, I don't know what's going on in the county because I don't read the Sparks. I don't have a computer, so how do I know what's going on? So if we can get a public access channel for these people, then they will know
No,
what's going
we
on.
can't.
How would that work when you have, and I'm sorry, but you have Time Warner,
Uh-huh.
okay, Spectrum,
Uh-huh.
okay, you have AT&T,
Uh-huh.
you know, you have all these different,
Uh-huh.
so that one channel's gonna be able to float on all of that?
Leon Valley has it. Not Leon Valley, but Helotes.
Helotes.
Helotes has it. So if Helotes can have it, we can too, and I'm working on it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
where does that revenue come from?
We were just speaking about
Yeah, we
that.
were talking about that.
You should mention.
There is a, so we receive money, we're thinking that it might be sales.
It's not an
But-
access fee for like Time Warner or any of those guys?
Something like
It's
that,
coming
I
from
think
there,
so, or
possibly?
maybe it's SWC maybe.
I think it's SWC.
I think so.
But we're gonna make sure before we
And so part
say.
of it is a franchise that we get to use in our general fund, and then another part of it, a percentage of it is for PEG. And so when the auditors come, they take that money and they move it over to PEG. But right now, we're getting that money, but we're not using it because we don't have the
Not yet,
medium.
but we
to
will.
use
So
it.
does it build up? Is there,
Yes, it does.
Yes, yeah.
how much is, do we know?
$35,420.
Yes.
No, so
No,
far up to
that's
now,
what we have.
and we'll.
Oh, I need a little bit more for my Christmas special.
How much do we get?
This is
Yeah,
what
we're
Peggy's
estimating
worth now.
15,000. Yeah, we've estimated 15,000 for this coming year.
I'm gonna put a round peg in.
Hey, I know this is kind of off task, but we talked about, Janice, we talked about the subscriptions.
Yes.
Um,
On the general fund, you mean?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
The Samco,
Uh-huh.
and what was the other one?
G and the,
Are they,
yeah.
are they any benefit to Hollywood Park?
Yeah.
Well, I will
But I
say,
know
yeah.
the previous mayor was a member of these.
well, the San Antonio Mobility Coalition was a real advantage back in the day when the former mayor was on that committee because of the toll roads. You know, but that's kind of gone on the way, so I can't unless the mayor has a particular desire to be on it, or you can think of anything else that you might want to use it
And these
for.
are small numbers, but I
Right.
mean,
Yeah. And
if they're not a benefit to us, then we don't need them.
Yeah.
The GN.
the Greater North Business Alliance.
Yeah, that's something that.
Yeah, that was kind of like whenever the former mayor was forming a coalition of municipalities to get together to form a buying co-op so we could get things cheaper through the state. But we already are a member of that anyway now. So unless you just wanted to be actively a member, you don't. You know.
I mean, there was like 5 or 6 subscriptions.
Now the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce, I think you need,
And the greater.
and the ACOG, I think you need.
ACOG is a good
And
one.
the
Yeah.
Bear County Coalition of
Yes.
Suburban Communities is a.
He's a good one for that. Yeah,
resource.
those three. But these two are the ones that are kind of stagnant. Yeah.
Unnecessary, I think. I don't think they provide any.
Did you want us to go ahead and remove those? Was that a consensus,
Can we
Mayor?
make sure we're moving the right ones?
Yeah, it was Samco and Greater North Business Alliance. I think those were the two that we're talking about. Okay.
I just wanted
Gotta
to
pay
catch
the
that
price
before
up.
we got into the voice.
Victoria's Secret.
Remove a couple more.
So they are under subscriptions. And I want to
Victoria's
say
Secret.
500 general fund.
We're working them.
And I want to say they're under,
Oh, there they are.
519, 351.
Okay, and so which ones do you?
So we want to get rid of Samco,
Okay,
It's come
and
with
we
a
want
card
to
or
get rid
something.
of GNVA.
Koozie?
okay,
And
all right.
we were gonna stop paying electricity on
The radio transmitter?
radio transmitter, right?
Yeah.
Yep, and I'm gonna get rid of 2 of the phone lines on the voice center.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
No,
Okay.
I have no idea why we
They're
have.
talking to each other.
I have no idea.
Why do we need more than one?
I've got a lifeguard phone,
Mhm.
I've got an emergency phone in the pool,
And the internet.
2 separate lines, and then I have a line over in the voice center.
150.
Uh,
Okay.
Yeah.
the voice center.
That's the one that
Excuse me?
Where's the emergency phone?
Inside the pool.
And
I have to, that's required.
Oh, yes.
No,
Well, that's
inside
the
the
thing that we
pool,
were
right
talking
outside.
about, yes.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm going to tell you,
So the little-
we are cheap compared to everybody else. I was shocked how cheap we were.
It's just,
regarding what?
What we charge for.
It's probably the alarm system. It's probably tied. It's not hitched to the
Yes.
alarm
Alarm
system.
system is
Outside,
totally wireless.
yes.
Telecommunications or anything.
The alarm system is wireless. What? Yes.
Event, I mean,
Yes. I do.
like banquets and such.
911.
Yeah, yeah.
Pick it up and dial 911.
Okay, but who does it call? What public
We are
safety?
cheap.
No, I have no idea.
Next door over at, what is that big real estate company next door off of 16, what's her name? The old lady, I say old lady, Deanne Harper. She rents every year, twice a year, over at TPC Parkway. They call it a shut-in. And from morning until 9 o'clock, she shuts in all of her department heads. Yes! Yeah, she shuts in them for one day.
Why do I have five phones?
Yeah, she shuts in for one day.
We'll send someone down here. Well, we're gonna
Yeah,
bill you.
because they pay a
You're
fortune
gonna bill
out
me,
there. Yeah.
call you to come down here to tell me why I have 5 phone lines and what the numbers are. No. Y'all come down here for your salary, you take all the phone lines out.
Well, they used to live here in the Bradfield, Joyce and Lloyd Bradfield.
And then if you're
I
having
didn't
shut
pick it
in
up.
and you've got that
The
view, that's not a bad shut.
Well, and you know what? They like to have food brought in, and so walk-ons or
Right.
Texas Roadhouse or whatever. But yeah, we're.
Peg, Peg's the keeper. It's the keeper, cheaper.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's this? So we are on 150, the Voight Center. That's you, sir.
Yes, we are.
You're up.
My turn again?
Yeah, I think it's 150 Voight
Unless,
Civic
do you want me
Center.
to start it off?
You can go ahead and start it off.
Yes, sir. Voight Center.
All right, everyone. Anita's gonna lead us
I'll start off Voight and then I'll kick
Voight.
it over to Kelly.
on 150.
So for Voight, you can see that we have requested double what we did last year. Last year, it looked like maybe it was about 22.5, I think. I'm just going off the top of my head. And now we're looking at about 50,950. And that's a big increase. And the thing is that this 150 Voight Center is funded by the hotel. And you guys only have one hotel in Hollywood Park. And that brings in, this year we budgeted $22,500 that the hotel would bring in. We're already at $19,659, and we've got one more quarter, which I'm hoping is going to be a good quarter, and it'll take us over that $22,500. But I don't think it'll take us that much over the $22,500. So one of the things that we've sort of been thinking about discussing, because it's expensive to run that center. We are thinking that perhaps some of the money in the general fund is actually going to have to go and cover this. And I know when Kelly was talking about Public Works, he had mentioned that there were some that maybe we could bring down. Do you recall us talking about that, where we were saying maybe the Triangle Park's not costing us as much in water?
Yes.
There's a cell phone tower and there's electrical there, but we're not
We had an
using
electrical
it.
tower over there at the water
Things
tower.
like that. So
Yes.
I was thinking that instead of him lowering the budget in Public Works, perhaps we might think of maybe that money helping to cover this money, and we either move it over or you guys would
Correctly
agree.
apply it.
Yeah, you would agree that you're going to have to pay for that.
But didn't some of the decisions we made earlier, isn't that the Voight Center gonna make more money?
That's
I
that's
think the
another
Voight
thing we were
Center
talking
will.
about.
But I also think that y'all are gonna have to sit down and consider your pricing structure.
Yeah.
You know, I have done a lot of research on other venues that are comparable, and we are not even in the ballpark.
Not even here.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we need to compete with them, because we're not trying to make a profit. We're just trying to cover costs. Well, I mean, that's up to y'all. Yeah, I mean, if we can get a profit, y'all can give me a bigger raise, I'm all for it.
If it were a self-sustaining resource, it would be because it's profitable when it's
It needs
used.
to
Yes.
be profitable, it doesn't need to break even, because the first thing that breaks on it
It's gonna,
ruins the break even.
right.
Sure. But also consider that your revenues are going into your general fund. So all of the money that you make on your rentals, all the money that you make in pool, that's going in the 100 fund. But a lot of the expenses for the Voight are coming out of this 150 fund. So if you're going to put your revenues into 100, you do have expenses coming out for the pool there, and that is the pool, I'm not sure if it's called the pool management, the Aquatica.
Right, pool management.
They come out of that 100 fund.
Can you change that to where the money that makes, so we can have an idea what, instead of just throwing it into the general fund, I mean, can we put it into a fund that is specifically for the Voight Center?
We're not
The
throwing.
Well, that's up to you guys.
So we know what we're making
I
on
mean,
it.
it could go in the general fund, but you can say any money's coming into the general fund from that specific.
Yeah, it's going in the general
Go to
fund, but
that.
it's earmarked
But
as
there's a
Voight
line
money.
for that?
It's
Okay.
Yeah,
If you look on-
it's on a line item
And
as
that's the
void
thing we
money.
were discussing, there's
So
three
we can
different
identify
monies
it.
going in. You
And
know,
Just so we know what we're
Move
making,
it.
whether we're losing or making
All
money.
right, and
It can
if
be
you actually look at
confusing.
Yeah.
that first page, page one, it actually is on there, line
I don't know why you guys
It's
made
like
those decisions last year.
501 and 502, Voight Building and Swimming Pool. Voight Building did $30,000 in 9 months, and Voight Swimming Pool did $52,000. So, and I expect those numbers to increase.
Which is
Yeah, I
why
mean,
we're
it-
asking for double, because
I get
think
nothing but
last
rave
year you
reviews
guys
about
had
it.
budgeted
I got
for
people
60.
that, I mean, we've got it booked over a year ahead in some places.
I guess I'm just gonna be curious to see once, you know, at the end of the year, that,
June,
Sure.
July, August,
maybe
September.
these two together made $100,000, but how much did we spend, you know, what,
Yeah, that's what I would like
I
to
just
do.
wanna make sure
Out of this
that we're not losing money.
But it's losing money right now.
I think
I'll be the first
because,
one
I
to
think
tell
really we're getting revenues in more than we've ever had before, but because of the nature of what it is now, I agree with Kelly and Councilman Howe has been talking about this for a while, also on increasing the prices for non-residents, for particularly people who would like to come in and use it for commercial, you know, business functions, weddings and so forth. And like Kelly and Mr. Howe has been saying previously, we are very, very, very inexpensive as compared to everybody else.
When you say it's losing money,
Yeah, just over a year.
is it bleeding money, or is it just,
I don't think it's bleeding, but we're losing
No,
money, but
I
I
mean,
think we
we've
can make
done-
money.
and
We've
why is it
done,
losing money?
we've done better than $80,000, but you gotta remember, pool management, Aquatica is $70,000 by itself,
Okay.
okay?
We also made a lot of.
30 years.
We also made a lot of changes from the way it was being done last year.
Right.
We tightened up how it can be reused and
Right.
that, we're seeing that this year. So
Yeah.
year to year, this is a huge difference.
I think where we're going to make our money is on outside non-resident rental, and that will be showing a good profit for us.
It sounds like to me, because of what Aquatica or anybody would charge us, for that matter, that's gonna be probably continue a money-losing proposition.
Well, I mean, that's the
Oh, the pool? I don't know.
Pool fees
One thing
and
start
Aquatica
with-
should be close. I mean,
Well, 52 is now, but when stuff starts breaking, we gotta pay for it.
Well-
that's when the rentals, yeah, you're right, that's when the pricing needs to be commensurate.
Well, that would depend on also too. We've never had anybody use our pool or rent our pool for the wintertime, and I know Kelly was looking into that as a pool rental, so that may be, you know.
For our internal purposes. Yeah, I'll make a note about that.
not just Northeast, but for other groups choosing the wintertime also.
I just don't want to use Star Center to cover the losses for the. That would be a bad idea.
Is that just a portion of the hotel?
Yes.
And
Do
then
you?
the other portion goes straight to them?
Yeah. Do you remember maybe about a few years ago on the hotel fund, you could only use it? It was a restricted fund, so restricted that you could only use it to promote the hotel.
Yes, I know they've worked.
Lyle Larson had that. Okay, right. So that means we have a different type of situation in Hollywood Park where you can use a portion of that, and so and so they said, since we're going to get that extra money, let's use it for this
Okay, so this is strictly our portion.
that we use for that. Yes.
And then the venue fund also is used for.
And that's a restricted fund. You can use that for Parks and Rec. Okay.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
This included their marketing portion of what.
No. No. History.
Gave to the EDC for the Voight was helpful too. Because I could certainly, make copies for these guys so they can have it.
Yeah, that packet. Well, let's make it for the entire council. Since we're doing it for the EDC, let's do it for the council. Yeah. I think so too. I think so too.
So what are we budgeting for this coming year?
Basically what I did is I took the 15.6, divided it by 9, applied for 12.
Thank you. Okay, good. gonna go ahead and have her be a part of the meetings next week so they can get to know her, but not make her go overtime. I'll just have her come in later, or let her go early Friday, so that way it stays in her 40 hours. But I think it would be beneficial for her and for them to know who she is since you're gonna be gone. Yeah. Yeah. And people are paying those. Yeah, non-residents are paying. Foreigner. Yeah, I like an immigrant pass.
Passport to come here? Oh my gosh, I'm in violation.
Yeah, you need your green wristband.
Yeah, that's why we have green wristbands.
Are you a resident or an immigrant? Are you a resident or a foreigner?
But I do expect
Okay.
the revenue from the Voice Center to increase. But remember, guys, we just made the
I do
change,
too.
what was it, February or March? Yeah. On the cost, on the pricing structure. A lot of the stuff that was already booked, May, April, and June, was paid for before y'all changed the pricing structure.
When can we change that again?
Anytime you want. Anytime you want.
We got some data that's coming in too.
Let's do it Wednesday.
All right, let's move on. I mean,
Okay. Asset forfeiture number 200, ma'am.
Okay, yes.
We moving on to asset forfeiture 200.
Well, there's one other thing there in the Voice Center
Oh.
fund. I put in, I need 5 patio heaters. Okay, we got patio heaters out there. Those only last a year. I've already rebuilt them. Took them completely apart and rebuilt them, so I can get another year out.
Those patio heaters, those with the
They don't last very long.
for a year?
Because they're not commercial grade. They're not-
But we don't use them all the time, so how come they only last a year?
Anytime you have something sitting there like that has gas run through it, propane is,
Well, how cheap?
They're portable, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh.
yeah, put it in there, that's what it's for, I just want y'all to know.
Oh. Heck, I thought they lasted like 5 or 10 years. That's how stupid I am.
Are you gonna get commercial ones or are you going
I really don't wanna buy commercial ones, they're $2,000-3,000.
Oh.
I mean, they're
Yeah, but
great,
how long did they last?
But,
someone, I think here's one of your volunteers for court, duty.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we ready for 200? 200 asset forfeiture?
Right. Okay, so what I noticed is last year in asset forfeiture, we had put a budget of 45,000, and in the seizure budget, 900, we had put a budget of 100,000. But the asset forfeiture does not bring in $45,000. The seizure fund is more likely to, and that's our DEA who's bringing in money for the seizure. So what we did, and I double checked with Chief Pritchard, we switched the two. So on asset forfeiture, we put 100, and that's really a placeholder because we don't know how many busts they're going to have. And so we put that placeholder. Now, the seized property should have been entered as a credit, and I made that correction in the system just now, but I entered it as a debit. So when you look at the second page, you'll see $200, but that shouldn't be 200. So your seized property, we're thinking $100, and your expenses, which would be for any PD supplies, would be $100. But Chief, did you want to talk about the asset forfeiture?
Sure, real quick.
And what's generating that?
That's from our DEA task force officer, and we get percentage from the proceeds. On the books right now, we've got probably about $250,000 coming our way. It just comes in so sporadic, I can't tell you when it'll be here, but it's in the system.
You're talking about 200, right?
Yeah.
Not the 900.
Is that the talking about?
The asset forfeiture, not the seized,
Okay, so
not the seizure.
we have a state program, we have the federal program. The
Yeah.
state program is everything we do locally, like our officers, if they pull a car over and those proceeds can be proven as tax narcotics, then we can seize it. Generally, those are small, between a couple $100 to maybe a couple thousand. So that's what I'm talking about now.
The 200,
Okay, so
yeah.
that was pretty rare. We generally don't get a lot of movement in that. We have to have it. So we just put something together because I believe we
Yeah.
a budget of some sort.
We put $100 in there.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't get a lot of those.
Right, and it's that seizure fund, the 900, which we would probably receive more, which is why we moved that to 45,000. But of course, we can discuss that one when we get to that one. Yeah. Was there anybody have any questions on that? Okay,
Go on,
and
capital.
then the capital project. This, of course,
Seed money.
your seed money.
Our seed money.
Right.
Mhm.
And right now, the only thing that I put in there was 3,700, and that's because that's how much you earn in interest annually for that.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that there's really any money that's sort
No.
of like set to go in there,
No,
or that
that-
you guys have
there's no more money coming
specified
in.
you want to go in there.
No,
Um,
no, 'cause that's a restricted fund. Yeah, that's when CPS, yeah, gave us the money they had in reserve for us, yeah.
And that's still in there, right?
That's it.
Semi-designating it for the.
Whatever you want. Yeah, we're just not getting any more revenue into that because that was a one-time deal.
Right,
Okay.
and I believe that initially when it was set up, it was called the fire truck fund, but because that makes it very restrictive, saying it's only for the fire truck, it was changed at some point to capital projects. I'm sorry, in case something else gigantic should come along and you need that money, you won't be restricted. You can use it for whatever emergency you would need it for.
Okay, hotel tax?
The hotel tax, right? And we talked about that too. That's the money that comes in from our hotel. Part of the money comes here, part of it goes to the 150 Voight. Yes, yes. And so we've only budgeted 7,625 for that. And that seems about fair because
Towards the back of your binder.
Yeah, and the little tab should say yeah,
it's 400.
400, it says hotel tax on the little tab.
You do have a tab for it. It's right after the
There you go.
capital projects.
Yeah, and I think the breakdown is
Mine's
1/4 from what you receive in hotel,
Yeah.
and the Voight gets 3/4 of that. So that's why this number's a little low.
Wait, say that again?
So when you receive money for your hotel, your hotel tax, this gets 1/4, and the Voight gets 3/4.
Okay. I had a question, and we moved forward, I didn't know we got past it. On page 2, under, capital project, 300, the 3,700 for service fees.
So it's really because I'm putting in your interest rate as the revenue, because that's all.
That's money that we're making.
That's
We're not
money you're
paying
making.
that, okay.
Yeah, yeah, you're making interest on that, but because I had to put it in an expense so that I could have my credit and my debit, I put it under miscellaneous. So that trust service fee, you could scratch that out if you want. It's just a miscellaneous category, but you're really not using it because this
So we're
is.
not actually paying bank fees for that.
You're not. No, you have no bank fees, but you are earning interest. And the hotel. And I haven't seen any expenses coming out of hotel, at least I don't recall, and all of those would be,
No, because he will come to us usually quarterly, or I harass him quarterly to try to get him to come in and give us what he wants to spend the money on, but usually he does it annually. I don't know why.
do you mean the hotel?
I mean the hotel
Okay,
guy.
okay.
Okay, what you talking about? Is it sewer fund?
Right.
500? Okay, what you got?
Okay.
Go ahead, ma'am, while they move today.
Alrighty, and so if we want to move on to sewer, or unless you have any more questions about hotel? Sewer? Okay, and so for sewer, what is it? SAWS, right? SAWS, our residents pay their sewer fund to SAWS. SAWS sends us a check for what they've collected from our residents, then we send them a check paying them back for the services they've provided for the town of Hollywood Park. And I think it's because their contract is with the town itself, correct? But they're also acting as the collectors, and so that's why we do that. So I don't necessarily think, and of course you can correct me because I'm still fairly new to it. We don't really receive a profit from this. It's just in and out. I think, correct?
You know what you're gonna say.
I was gonna say, if at some point,
TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental, yeah.
determines that we need to at some point, switch to sewers.
Yes.
This sort of an account helps facilitate that.
Yes.
And with a few years' notice, if we were to try to offset the cost to
Yes.
residents of that conversion,
Yes.
we could start applying a fee per toilet in each home, $1 a month or something, and it would build an account that would help offset the fund, or the amount that would be needed, and help execute a plan that would connect homeowners with such a system.
Yeah.
And so the fact that this is in place is a helpful thing. But it's more of a perimeter than anything. I think that's the way a lot of municipalities around the country have had to, when they've been in a situation where they have to convert, that's a way of doing it. And because most everyone's septic systems are in their backyards, if there's a complicated easement issue, trying to connect houses, and like 4 at a time by going between homes into the backyards, and then you can connect 4.
I think there was a cutoff point when the house was being built, and it was moved to the front.
Okay.
I think 73 or 72 is when you had to move them to the front of
The
the
newer ones, okay.
Yeah, the newer ones, yeah.
Okay.
Well, mine's 74 and it's in the back.
Yeah.
Most of mine are back.
Okay. It's, yeah, really, it gets, the fact that this is in place, and it's set up is good. All the ones have to convert, but
Right. And so with the sewer, we made no changes from last year to this year. We kept it the same, if that's okay with you guys. Okay. Venue comes from your sales tax. And what that is paying for, my understanding is that there's restrictions on what we can use it for. Now, we are allowed to pay half of our public works salaries from Venue because they maintain the Voight Center and the parks. So we're able to do that. In addition to that, what comes out of there, there's some portable restrooms for about $2,000 a year, and those are at Triangle Park, maybe?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Nora Park.
And then the other thing that comes out of there is your bond payment. And so your interest is about $95,510 a year, and your principal is $100,000 a year. As I was reviewing the documents, and you guys, of course, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've got like about 20 years, so I think it'll be 2041
Yes.
before you guys
Yes.
are done paying that. Yeah.
And we would have to reapprove that venue tax. We have to vote like we do on the street
No,
fund? We
no.
don't?
Once you voted, that was it, yeah. It's just the street tax basis that you're talking about every 2 years. Want to go on to street?
Yeah, we can go into street. And so street, we kept it the same as last year. My understanding is currently there's not a lot of activity, but I think there may be a project that's coming up. And so then you'll kind of start working on that. It's at $140,400 budget. Let's see. I don't think we made any changes on that. For the street, let's see.
Let's see, it's 248,000.
Yeah, 248,
And where's the other one?
159.
159. Yeah, I don't have it
So
on mine.
let's see.
So,
Yeah, what was that number?
159,337 and 248,000.
248,000.
48,000.
So we currently have about 407. Yeah, is that what you said? Yeah, and 33.
Do you remember, did we raise that last year, or did we keep it the same last year, the 140?
The street? I think it's the same, isn't it?
So probably actually getting more than that, but it's good to look.
conservative.
Yeah.
And I can certainly look up.
EDC?
Yes, EDC. EDC remained at 140. They did not submit any changes to us, and so we kept their budget the same.
Oh, that one's easier.
Yeah. The seizure fund? For seizure or for? Which
Seizure? Yeah, seizure.
Okay, yeah, and seizure's the one that we moved up to 45. And Chief, can you kind of explain why that one's, it's more likely to get more money in that one?
Well, no, I was looking at this, and there it has the outreach is 10,000, the marketing 10, but the legal fees, everything is more. You're paying more than you do for marketing.
In the EDC?
You have to have a lawyer there every time you have a meeting.
They do, they do.
It could be the movie night, the mayor movie night. They pay for part of it. I think they pay for a certain part of the month.
Well, it's EDC sponsored Mayor's Movie Night. The reason the EDC started sponsoring it is they wanted it to be an event where commercial entities could go and give out flyers or maybe give food samples or do all of that kind of thing, but it's never been really marketed.
Do we actually pay $75,000 for that?
The movies are expensive.
The licensing.
The licensing fees.
Right, but I don't think it's
Yeah.
just that. There could be other things in there. So let me go ahead and pull that up.
Is that the mulch deal also? Is that where that came from?
Let's see.
I think on the miscellaneous, they used to pay for the shred day also.
Wedding magazines and event publications, market the town, our venue, our hotel, and make use of that. What is event?
Let's see.
The what?
The event. So miscellaneous is their supplies. Let me check where we have the movie. Maybe that's the event. Let me double check on that.
Who's the
Where
attorney?
is the event?
Ryan? So, I mean, like, we have Ryan's group at the Deer Committee once a month,
Yeah, Hardy.
and it's only $4,200, so how come he's charging so much?
Well, because he does ordinances and resolutions.
Anytime there's something done, he has to draw something up.
They have tons of resolutions.
Every instance, that $10,000 is gonna get utilized.
Yeah, let me check.
Yeah.
Let me check. I mean, it's the whole board.
Does he bill us by the hour, or is he on a retainer?
I don't know.
If he's
Yeah,
billed by the
yeah.
hour, we should get a retainer.
It's, that would be
It's
an
hourly.
EDC decision.
It's hourly?
It's hourly.
Yeah, he needs to be on a retainer.
So if all this money belongs to the city already, and goes back to the general fund, and we distribute from there,
Probably belongs to the city.
legal fees, and all this other stuff.
Looks like you save $140,000.
And I think it was for the fire truck.
I mean,
If it's,
Would you say the movie came out?
So the movie actually comes out of event.
Event,
Yeah.
so that's
Yes,
$10,000.
that's
So
10,000.
what's the 75,000?
The 75 is miscellaneous, and so it could be any sort of.
size banners, right? It's
Right. Well,
Is it that mulch thing that they do? every
I think
spring also?
actually I think the mulch might come out of.
But that doesn't mean they're gonna spend
But I don't,
Right.
I don't like the term miscellaneous, because then it's just a catch-all.
Right, and I think miscellaneous could be like any subscriptions they have. Or,
How much is miscellaneous?
Yeah, let's.
How much is total miscellaneous? 10,000, that's what they budgeted?
I think it was the 7,500 that they're talking about.
It has to be for economic development. They can't just say, we're gonna spend, we're gonna,
Ryan's expertise also is in knowing how to massage the shoehorn or massage legitimate expenses for capital improvements through the EDC. I'm impressed with his knowledge of the real helpful and supportive when we met Friday. Spoke with him after court day last Thursday, and we had a pretty long conversation about the EDC, my attended EDC meeting, and he seems pretty savvy on ways to help us make use of it.
Right, and currently in their miscellaneous, they haven't spent very much. They bought some supplies for ribbon cutting, so I guess there was a new business that opened.
Oh, the doghouse.
Yeah, there was a little bit of ribbon cutting. They had a subscription for the EDC president. He's got to be like a member of some organization. Now, when you guys had that Starbucks group come in, then they paid for the review permit. They paid for the meter loop permit. So they were, I think maybe it was like perks that they were, not necessarily perks, but they were saying, we'll cover these costs, as
To be able to get the
as a goodwill saying, come into us, we're going to help you. So I think it just depends, that miscellaneous,
How about the golf tournament? I think that was a great idea.
They're sponsoring a golf tournament for local realtors, mortgage lenders, and real estate-related professionals in October. And they're going to, what are they trying to do?
They're all gonna meet at the Voight Center, and then the golf carts will go from the Voight Center down into the golf course, so they get the idea that we're a golf community.
Yeah.
But they're also gonna have some of the businesses like walk-ons afterwards. They're gonna come back up to the Voight Center, and all the food and everything will be catered from some of the local businesses that are in town.
The golf cart guys will have.
Right, so I'm sitting there saying, well, realtors, how does that really promote
That's what
the
I'm
corporate
saying.
entities,
Our houses sell great.
But according to our attorney, because you're bringing also in the local businesses, restaurants and stuff that are going to be catering the event, that's one way of doing it, so. Yeah.
This is for the realtors,
Right.
so they're trying to get the realtors to start marketing Hollywood Park more
But
often.
they sell by themselves.
And there's an organic demographic element of having nicer homes, paying more taxes, attracting better businesses. It's all part of
Right.
that. High tech, having the new equipment. Ryan seems comfortable with presenting it.
Well, I guess other EDCs have done it, and that's why it was, there's precedent.
I want to see them concentrate on the business district, though.
Me too.
I mean, our homes sell whether we promote them
Correct.
or not.
That's what my questioning was. How can,
Yeah.
but because they're bringing in these businesses, okay, to cater the event, that was how they were able to, I guess.
Yeah, but I'd rather spend that money on cameras and things
we are.
that we need.
Right, it's going to happen.
But see, I don't really know, okay, we'll take the Galleria strip mall or whatever.
Yes.
We don't own that mall, so what can we really promise them unless the owner's in on the idea also? And, you can offer like lower taxes for a year or two or whatever, but if they're wanting to do something and the person that owns that land is saying, no, I'm not gonna knock out that wall, I wanna sell this as two separate businesses.
They both have to work together. I mean, us and the owner.
EDC and the owner, right.
Yeah, I mean,
How's that
I
relationship
wish
so
they
far?
would have limited the number of churches that they had as a percentage of attendance.
EDC?
Yeah.
And
the relationship that they,
He's a brand new guy, so.
Yeah, there's a new guy. And it seems,
yeah, the churches don't bring any money to us.
that's, I know.
Neither do nursing homes. How many nursing homes do we have here? Just the one? Right there by,
What a tough crowd here. Foreigners, churches, nursing homes. You guys are bad.
Well, I just look at it because you're gonna be losing all that tax revenue sooner or later.
Yeah, but to attract some more.
Sorry, I had to say that.
I need new people coming in here. That tax base is sparking, no pun intended. All right.
Questions, comments?
I'm gonna probably have to resign after this.
So do you wanna wait and talk about EDC, or is that another, next week?
Are we still talking about EDC? I think
we need to have some better discussions, longer discussions, not in budget, but about the existence of it.
Sure.
Are we getting our biggest bang for the buck for it? And, they've got $500,000 sitting there. What are they doing with it?
absolutely.
How'd they get it?
That was the reason I was.
Because it just has dollars in it.
And so I
They don't
think
need it then, so why do we have this?
that a pressing
It just
issue,
adds
and
on
the
and
health
adds on.
insurance
So they get to
for the employees is a
build
pressing
up
issue. And
stash.
I think if we're comfortable staying with the same ad valorem tax rate, we can make that decision today, and then that paperwork can be initiated, right, that the state has to get in the county. We need that right away. And then we can try to address the other variables, the health insurance and the
Health
EDC.
insurance is crazy.
This coming Wednesday, next
I
Wednesday.
think we should get it pretty soon, the finals.
The
You're talking about the
finals, I
final
think so.
on that? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. So
I
more,
do.
my question is also, Mayor, do we need to have a third budget session, or have you all received consensus?
And the third budget session was scheduled for, is it next Wednesday?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
I would say that, just leave it on the schedule so we can tackle the last two items, the group health. And just following a decision on group health, would then be presentations we need to schedule with those companies and the employees, correct? And
Well, you could tackle group health, yeah, on the budget session or at the council meeting, whatever you'd like to do. And, yeah, either one.
I mean,
Both.
is it, what's really, is there talk about, I mean, really they're gonna pay it?
Well, we already budgeted the 50%, so that's in there. We'll know more final figures in August.
25%, and we, you know, we need to figure out, what are the co-pays at? I need to know the information from that healthcare provider to know.
We'll know that in August. In August, we will know definitely what the options are going to be.
So do they pay, does the place pay a co-pay right now, or do we pay everything?
They pay, there are co-pays and deductibles. correct?
Yes,
Yes, there are.
yes.
And they're pretty high.
So we don't, but we don't. do
We don't pay the
your
co-pays.
You pay for the entire premium, but each individual employee pays their own copay.
They said that they were paid
But
25%.
I don't know what the co-pays are between the different healthcare providers. You know, if
Oh,
one's
okay.
83%
I thought you were
higher,
talking about the
and
premium.
one's 50, well, one might have a $150 copay and one might have a 50. I don't know the differences between.
Okay, okay, no, I thought you were saying that they pay part of their premium, but we pay.
No, you pay the entire premium per employee.
I mean, there are companies, I'm gonna try to find out some more information about companies like, it's called White Glove, it's called Fetch MG, and see how they can.
That, you know, you were talking about that, but my question is, so all this information you're gathering, okay, are you talking next Wednesday, like the 11th?
Yes, yeah.
You gonna have all the
This is
information
the
by then?
ninth,
Or
is you're talking about in 2 days is the next budget meeting, or the following?
No,
It'd be the 18th.
next week. So
It'd be
budget.
the 18th.
Yeah. So let's see. It's going to be budget number 3.
Right.
Yeah.
The day after.
Because
Right.
I would think you need time to get all that
Yeah.
information available,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it'll be after the council meeting.
The council meeting next Wednesday.
Right.
Okay. And, but this company, it appears that co-pays are gonna end up around $100. There are companies that can come in and provide services, go to your home or go to your office, they provide treatment, can prescribe medicine, and if they can address the percentage, say 40 or 50% of the minor incident,
Allergies.
allergies,
Right, you need-
infections, things like that, the decrease in our, on our, what do you call it? The incidents, was it? No, the percentage, the number of incidents that a company's employees have, helps determine our rate. If we can.
Claims, I think you're talking.
Claim history.
Yes.
Yes, if we can address a lot of the smaller things and the employees find it better, if they can come to you than you waiting in a doctor's office. The lower claim incidents will reduce our premiums the following year. And I don't know if it would even offset the increase, but if they can help reduce the premium, then everybody wins. And so I'm trying to get some answers to options like that.
Broadway Bank had that,
Okay.
and, I don't know if they still have it, but at the time they saw it as a win. People weren't taking off work
Yeah,
and that kind of stuff.
yeah, and there's no claim filed, so adjourned. It's, I'm going to say July 9th, but it's 8:10 p.m. Thank you all. Continue.
And Brent Kavanaugh is our new Supreme Court justice.
Brent Kavanaugh. Nice. Brent Kavanaugh. He sounds like, is he a wrestler? Was he a wrestler? He sounds like a... Brent Kavanaugh. Yes. The Italian stallion. Something. Thanks, everybody. Please take your wrappers. All you rappers, take your wrappers with you.